I'll be showing you everything you need to know to play Demonology Warlock in MoP Classic, starting off with what race to play. So if you are going with Alliance, then I would recommend Worgen. They have a Dark Flight racial, which gives you a short burst of movement speed, but mainly the reason we're going with Worgen is for viciousness, giving you 1% increased critical strike chance at all times. Horde, however, do get the best pick of the bunch with Troll. They have Berserking. It gives you increased casting speed of 20% for 10 seconds on a 3-minute cooldown, and Beast Slaying, meaning you do more damage to beasts. Not as good as Berserking, but still, it's, not horrific. If you don't want to go with those, you can also go with Orc, who have Blood Fury, which will increase spell power for 15 seconds on a 2-minute cooldown. So Orc and Troll are the best. Worgen, not as good, but obviously if you're going for Alliance, that is the one you are going to want to go with. Both gnomes and also humans actually have an easier time hitting their hit cap for their spells as well on your stat statistics, so they are an option, but Worgen does outweigh them overall. For your talents, we don't get as many as we did back in Cataclysm as we do in MoP Classic. We only have a few here to choose from, and you can change these out whenever you like using Tome of Clear Minds. So on the first line, I would recommend to go with Dark Regeneration. This is an instant 30% heal on a 2-minute cooldown. However, you could go with Soul Leech, where some of your spells mean that you actually get a shield preventing damage done. However, Dark Regen is usable whenever you like and will restore 30% health and increase healing received, only on a 2-minute cooldown, so when you get in times of, this is going to be really good. On the second line, it would be Mortal Coil, causing the enemy to run in horror, but also restore 15% of your maximum health. Both Shadow Fury and Demonic Breath are also crowd control spells, however Mortal Coil is the best because it also gives you a heal as well. Soul Link is going to be the one on the level 45 line, meaning 20% of all damage done is actually split between you and your summoned demon, and 3% of the damage you deal is converted to healing on you and your demon as well, meaning damage equals healing passively whenever you're doing DPS. Unbound Will on the next line, on a minute cooldown, gets rid of all magic and movement impairing effects on your character. Grimoire of Supremacy basically means you get even more powerful demons to summon, and these demons deal more damage. This means that as a Demonology Warlock, you are going to be able to summon one of these, which is called a... God, what is it actually called? Here we go. You have all these demons you can choose from, and it's going to be a Wrath Guard. This is the one you're going to be using, which is an upgraded Fel Guard for Demonology. And on the last line, it's Archimonde's Darkness. This means that your Dark Soul spells have 2 charges. This is the Dark Soul Knowledge. Your soul is infused with demonic knowledge, increasing the effect of your mastery by an additional 30% for 20 seconds. And you actually get 2 charges rather than 1. So our mastery increases the damage done by our demons and how much damage we deal in both Metamorphosis form and our caster form. So when we use this cooldown, it massively increases the effect we get from that mastery bonus by 30%. And we can use it twice because of the talent Archimonde's Darkness. If you don't know about Metamorphosis, which is also going to be impacted by the mastery, don't worry, I'll be explaining this more later in the rotation. Going into the glyphs, we do have a few good ones. They're not amazing, but, we have to take what we can get. I would recommend you go with Glyph of Imp Swarm, which teaches a new ability, Imp Swarm. Summons 4 Wild Imps to attack the target. Wild Imp's passive is also disabled while it's on cooldown. The Imp Swarm's cooldown is reduced by how much spell haste you have and increases Wild Imp's cooldown. That is this ability here, where we can summon Wimps Imps. Now, if you can't find this in your spellbook, it's under the General tab. It's not under Demonology or Warlock. It's actually under General, as you can see here from the glyph. Annoyingly, but that's where they put it. It actually stumped me for a little bit. I thought, where the hell have they put it? But it's in the General tab up here for you. And that's basically an extra cooldown that we can get in our rotation. The other ones I'm going with is Glyph of Siphon Life, where your corruption spell will heal you when dealing damage, and also Unending Resolve, where the cooldown is reduced, but it also has less of an effect on damage reduction. But overall, this is a gain for you. The rest of them just aren't that great. If you're dealing with loads of targets, you could go with Glyph of Curse of the Elements, where this glyph, this curse, will hit 2 additional nearby targets as well. This is Curse of the Elements. Basically increases magic damage taken by 5% for 5 minutes on your enemy, and you should have this up at all times unless somebody else is providing this. For Mr. Pandaria Classic, I'm teaming up with Zygor to give you 20% off with code Javier. Zygor gives you the fastest and most efficient levelling experience. As you can see here, looking at killing snow leopards, I can even click all the different waypoint coordinates to see the fastest way to get to the different areas they may be in. It can also look at flight paths and show me which ways to go, including all of the different travel options. And when choosing quest rewards, it can even tell me which is the best upgrade for me. And this will be even spec dependent. I can click on the gloves, complete the quest, and then it will even tell me to equip them and shows me how much attributes and stats I will gain by equipping these items. Maybe even talents. I can use the talent advisor with Zygor, simply clicking that I want to be an Affliction Warlock, and it's going to configure it automatically to show me the best leveling build for Affliction for me. The fun doesn't stop there though, because it's available for SOD, Classic, Retail, Leveling. I can choose zones I want to go into, and it'll tell me how to get there and do all of the leveling in that zone, even if you're going back to old zones that you've leveled out of. Dungeons, dailies, events, reputation, gold making, professions, pets and mounts, and achievements. You can use as little or as much as you like. And don't forget, you can get 20% off with code Javier and battle past everyone at lightning speed in Mr. Pandaria Classic. Next up, of course, is the bit you're all waiting for, the rotation. It's quite simple. I would say it's the second easiest. So Affliction's the easiest, Destruction's the worst, Demonology's a nice middle ground, and I'm quite enjoying it, actually, in MoP Classic. So each different spec has a different resource, actually, in MoP, and we have Demonic Fury, as you can see up the top left here, and we can have up to 1,000 of it. So a lot of our spells will generate Demonic Fury, and we're going to use Metamorphosis to actually spend it. And I'm going to go over that in detail shortly. So what we've got here is the main short little single target rotation. Number 1, Corruption. Generates 4 Demonic Fury each time it deals damage. Keep it up at all times. Then we're going to use the Hand of Gul'dan. We're going to use this whenever we have a charge, basically. So I can do that on my target, and it applies Shadow Flame to the target, as you can see here, which basically deals more damage. So keep Corruption up at all time, keep Hand of Gul'dan up, basically up at all time whenever you can on the target. And then we have Soulfire. We're not going to be using this all the time. It burns the enemy doing damage. Soulfire always critically strikes. In addition, the damage is increased by your critical strike chance and generates 30 Demonic Fury. But like I said, we're not going to be using this at all times. So when are we going to use Soulfire? Well, we have a passive here called Molten Core. When Shadow Flame or a Wild Imp deal damage, you have a chance to trigger Molten Core. So what are Wild Imps and what are Shadow Flame? Well, Wild Imps, we have a passive here. Every 22 seconds, you gain Demonic Calling, causing your next Shadow Bolt or Soulfire and Touch of Chaos to summon a Wild Imp from the Twisting Nether. Each one of them will cast 10 Firebolts before departing and generating some demonic energy. Now, it also said here that when Shadow Flame deals damage, it has a chance to trigger. So when we use our Hand of Gul'dan, that actually puts on our target Shadow Flame. So whenever that deals damage, or whenever we have Wild Imps out, we have a chance to get that Demonic Core buff. So there's a little one of my Wild Imps here. As you can see, it's doing damage. And you actually get a buff up here, Demonic Calling, so you know your next Shadow Bolt, etc. will be calling out an Imp. And there we go, Molten Core. You know you've got Molten Core because it says here Soulfire. So the cast time and mana cost of Soulfire is halved. So when you see Soulfire light up, that is basically when we are going to be using it, whenever it's lighting up. So again, keep up Corruption at all times. Use your Hand of Gul'dan to keep up Shadow Flame on the target. Use Soulfire whenever it procs, and use Shadow Bolt as your filler. And that is basically all we have to do for the main part of the single target rotation, which the aim of the game is generating Demonic Fury. So let's now go on to spending Demonic Fury. To spend it, we go into Metamorphosis, as you can see here, and our Demonic Fury is slowly going to tick down. So when you do this, your spells are going to change. We're now going to have Doom. We want to keep Doom up at all times. We also want to use our Touch of Chaos, and this is actually going to extend the duration of our Doom and our Corruption on the target. Now, the good thing is here, what you'll see is Corruption is we're going to keep corruption up at all times, but you'll notice when we go into metamorphosis, corruption turns into doom. However, we can have both doom and corruption up at the same time. And touch of chaos here, which is what your shadow bolt turns into, will actually refresh your corruption on the target. Meaning, in metamorphosis, we can keep up doom and also corruption at the same time without having to worry about it. Hopefully I'm making sense when I say that. So when should we actually choose to activate metamorphosis? Well, because we want to be keeping up doom and corruption, etc., and really making the most of it, we want to make sure we do a few things. Make sure to cast corruption and your Hand of Gul'dan before going into metamorphosis, and also use your Imp Swarm. These abilities are all going to generate demonic fury, allowing you to keep into your demon form for longer. Whenever you first go into combat, you also want to immediately use metamorphosis, use doom, and then come out of it, just to get doom up on the target. Then go into your normal rotation of using corruption, Hand of Gul'dan, and any free soulfires that you've got, etc. Well, not free, but, half the cost. Now, what you'll notice here is that Molten Core stacks can also stack up, so do be aware of that. Because one thing is, you're not really going to be using Soulfire unless you need the burst damage when we are actually in our Metamorphosis phase. The goal is to try and stay between 800 and 900 Demonic Fury, so that we can kind of go in and out of our Metamorphosis between those two stats. So sort of go into it at about 900, once it goes to 800, then come out of it. This means that we can maintain our Doom and things like that as much as possible. So, again, when you go into combat, use Metamorphosis, immediately put on Doom, and then come out of it. Keep up your corruption, use Hand of Gul'dan to put Shadow Flame on the target, use any procs like that on Soulfire, and then use Shadow Bolt as your filler. Once you get to 900 Demonic Fury, go into Metamorphosis, make sure to reapply Doom, keeping that up, and also use your Touch of Chaos to keep up your corruption on the target. Before you go into it, also use your Imp Swarm to make sure you're generating more Demonic Fury. We've got some other cooldowns and things you need to be aware of. 1, Curse of the Elements. Keep this up at all times. It increases how much magic damage your target takes by 5% for 5 minutes. We also have Dark Soul Knowledge, increasing the effects of your Mastery by an additional 30%, and you're going to want to use this when you go into Metamorphosis as well. We also have Summon Terror Guard and Summon Abyssal. Basically, these share a cooldown on 10 minutes. You're going to use your Terror Guard in single target and your Abyssal in AoE situations. In AoE situations then, speaking of that, what are we going to be doing? Well, keep up corruption on all targets and make sure you use your Wrathstorm. This is actually, as you can see here, your demon that will be using Wrathstorm. It basically does a whirlwind attack to nearby targets. And then we're going to use Hellfire, which will do AoE damage around you, as you can see here. That's all we're really going to do in AoE. And that is pretty much it for the rotations that we're going to be doing. There are a few other things that we can do, of course. We have Carrion Swarm whenever we are in Metamorphosis, unleashing a wave of shadow which will knock back enemies and interrupt them. So it's an interrupt, basically, doing some damage when in Metamorphosis. Dark Regen we've spoken about from the talents. Demonic Leap, you can leap to in front, activating Metamorphosis and leaping. Mortal Coil, again from the talents we've spoken about, same as Unbound Will. We have Decimation. When you cast Soulfire or Shadow Bolt on a target with less than 25% health, you will gain Molten Core. If your summoned demon dies, you gain the Demonic Rebirth effect, reducing the cast time of your next summoned demon by 100%. So basically, if your demon dies, you can immediately recast it and get it back out. Then it goes on to basically the passives we have with our demon and ourselves when in Metamorphosis, which we've been over. When we're using our demon form, our armor contribution is massively increased, and the duration of stun effects is reduced. We have Soul Link, where 20% of all damage is split of our demon, etc., and then Wild Imps, which we've already spoken through. In Warlock, we have quite a few utilities, etc. Banish. Banish is an enemy demon, aberration or elemental. Basically, it cannot act, but is invulnerable. We can create health stones using our Soul Well for us or our party. We have other curses like Enfeeblement, but the curse you're mainly going to be using is the elements to increase damage taken. Dark Intent will increase spell power and stamina by 10% for an hour for you and your party. Keep this up at all times. And then we have Demonic Circle, Teleport, and Demonic Gateway, which are other great ways of getting around when needed. We can fear, we have fell flame, which we're not really be using, health funnel if needed, which sacrifices health and restores our demon's health. We're not really be using that. We also have life tap, which can get you a lot of mana back by sacrificing your health. Howl of Terror, which is basically a massive fear. Soul Shatter, reducing threat by 90% of all nearby enemies. Twilight Ward, where we can actually absorb shadow or holy damage. And Unending Resolve, which is another defensive that we can use. One thing to note on things like our corruption is Pandemic. When refreshing your periodic damage effects, the duration remaining will actually be stacked onto the old duration if used at 50% or less. So basically, when I use corruption, as you can see here, it's ticking down at like how many long is it? 18 seconds. However, I can reapply corruption and the old duration will be added to the new duration, but only 50% of it. So like now, I can refresh my corruption and it's got 24 seconds left. But if I refreshed it right now, I'd be wasting some. Only when there's 50% remaining or less do you want to refresh your corruption or any other dots. But the duration will be added on to the new duration if done this way. And that's basically what Pandemic does. And that is the main rotation and utilities that we have available as a Demonology Warlock in MoP Classic. For your stat priority, it's pretty straightforward. Number one, we want Intellect because it increases how much damage our spells do, and also it gives us a little bit of crit chance as well. Secondary, we want hit chance. 7.5% is the rating you want to get to, which I believe is, let me just remind myself, 5100 hit rating. The interesting thing in MoP Classic is that 1% expertise also equals 1% hit chance, meaning you can get either expertise or hit chance, total taking you to 5100 hit rating to hit the cap. I did mention earlier that gnomes and humans have a short blade and sword specialization, meaning that if you are one of those specs, you will only need 4760 hit rating instead if using a sword or dagger of sword if you're a gnome or human. But of course you must actually use those weapons in order to get the hit rating benefit from those racials. After hitting your hit rating, it's then going to be basically Mastery, Haste, and also Crit. They're actually very, very similar in comparison for Demonology, which is rare. Usually I recommend one over the other. Mastery is probably the best, I would say, increasing damage done by our demons and how much we do in Caster and Metamorphosis form as well. And then I would probably go for Haste, increasing our attack speed, etc. And then also, obviously, Crit Chance. Now going on to gems and enchants and things like that. On your meta gem, you're going to want to go with a Burning Primal Diamond, okay? Then, if you're having issues hitting the hit/expertise cap, go for something like a Precise Primordial Ruby. But if you're not having any issues, then we can go for the Brilliant versions. On the yellow, this I want to be clear here. If the socket bonus is something like 60 Mastery or 60 Haste, then what I want you to do is go for a Brilliant Primordial Ruby, because the intellect you're going to gain from this is going to outweigh the stat benefit of getting that socket bonus. If, however, your socket bonus is 60 intellect or higher, then we can go for an Artful Vermilion Onyx, because we're getting the extra stats from the gem plus the socket bonus of the intellect. Same again on the blue slot regarding the hit cap. We've got the Rigid River's Heart, etc. Otherwise, if you're not having issues with hit caps, then it's going to be a Veiled Imperial Amethyst or a Perfect Veiled Roguestone, etc. For the enchants we've got a few on the shoulders here from Inscription, but if you are an inscriber yourself, you can get this super duper whooper one as seen here. Superior Intellect on your cloak and Lightweave Embroidery if you're a tailor. Glorious stats on your chest. Intellect again on the wrists. You can actually get fur lining with intellect if you're a leather worker, and you can also add an extra socket if you are a blacksmith, and that goes for the hands as well. On the hands, you can get Mastery, Haste, Expertise, which will of course help with the spell hit cap should you need it. Living Steel Belt Buckle everyone can add, no matter your profession. Cerulean Spell Thread, etc. on here, and there's Master Spell Thread if you are a tailor. Pandaran Step on your feet. If you're an enchanter, you can get greater intellect on both your rings, and then you've got Jade Spirit, Elemental Force, or Wind Song on your weapons. And you can also put major intellect if you are using an offhand or can use an offhand as a caster as well. Regarding the professions that you may want to take, tailoring gives you about 320 intellect. Blacksmithing does, jewel crafting does, alchemy, enchanting does. They all pretty much give the same amount, but leatherworking always comes through with an extra 10 intellect. Herbalism gives 480 haste as well, so not bad. But generally, it doesn't matter which profession you take in Mists of Pandaria. For consumables, as a caster, I'm filming this on my mage, but it's the same for all casters. You want Potion of the Jade Serpent, increasing intellect by 4,000 for 25 seconds. You've got Flask of the Warm Sun, increasing intellect by 1,000 for an hour. And then you've also got a mana potion if you need it, called a Master Mana Potion. There's a Potion of Focus as well for casters, should they need it for their mana as well. Master Healing Potions are the healing potions, and generally you're going to be using a Great Pandaran Banquet to get 275 in intellect. If you're using food on your own, however, it's going to be a Mogu Fish Stew, which gives 300 intellect. There is a braised turtle, which is 275 as well, and swirling mist soup, which gives 250 intellect. But generally, the Mogu fish stew is the absolute best, with 300 intellect for all casters. And there we go, guys. That's everything you need to know to play Demonology Warlock in Mists of Pandaria Classic. Hopefully this was helpful for you. If it was, don't forget you can join Patreon below and get any extra help that you need using the VIP channels that we offer in our Discord. And don't forget you can get money off with code Javier with Zygor to jumpstart and speed up all of your journey throughout Mists of Pandaria Classic as well. I've left a link in the description for that. If you are looking for other classes and specs, then don't forget you can actually check out all of these in the playlist you now see on screen, as I have done all of them for MoP Classic.